There's power in taking a photograph. There's power in being an artist.
It's the Phoenix Film Revival Podcast.
All right. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Phoenix Film Revival Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Iannacone. And today I have with me Stacey Iannacone.
Hello, hello.
And
Hi, Liz Potter.
Welcome, Liz.
Thank you for joining us, Liz.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to come on, talk to us a little bit about
Oh, yeah.
you and your work and everything
Yeah.
that's going on, where you're at.
So I connected with Liz through Instagram, the usual. She's got some awesome work, and she lives out in West Texas. She does a bunch of different alternative processes, and as well as shooting Polaroids, emulsion lifts. She hand colors her prints.
A mix of everything in
Yeah.
there. Like I was looking at your work and I was like, you dabble. You're a dabbler for sure. Like kind of going on all the different processes, which is super awesome to see. I like that. A lot of people get kind of stuck in their lane. So it's always fun to see somebody that's like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this.
Yes.
And that obviously shows with your work. But the fun part about your work is that you're equally proficient in all of it. It all really, your style shows through, even through the different ways that you do things. It's still like very distinctively your work. So
Thanks.
that's really
No,
cool to see.
That means a lot because that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, it definitely 100% shows that way. So my first question is, why are you in West Texas? How did that come about? Because that's not very populated where you're at, right? You're pretty middle of
It's pretty
nowhere.
remote. I lived in Austin for 30 years because I graduated from UT Austin in 1990 in photojournalism, and I just stayed. And I took a road trip out here by myself, went camping, and I had never been in this area before. And I think it was just that I'd been in Austin for so long. I was kind of ready for a change, and I didn't know about West Texas. And as soon as I experienced it, I was like, I need to get out here. So I moved. I didn't know anybody. I hadn't even been to the grocery store
Wow.
here. I was just like, I just know I want to be out here. And it's the
Yeah.
best thing I've ever done.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
great. That's always nice when you find a place and you're like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
This
This
is
is it.
supposed to be where I'm supposed to be. And it really seems like it lends itself to your work that you do. It seems like it's kind of a perfect match.
Oh, it radically changed my work. I mean, I don't think I wasn't doing any of what I'm doing now when I was in Austin. I was shooting predominantly with a Holga for decades. And
Yeah, I think I read on your website, I think it said 27 years, like you're a Holga shooter.
it was a long time.
Yeah.
And then I just wasn't seeing with it anymore. And so
Yeah.
about a Pentax 6.7, moved out here, started shooting stuff. Pandemic kind of tossed everything around. And that's when the doors just blew open as far as looking into vintage cameras. I mean, like antique and vintage cameras, and just exploring different formats. And I mean, it's almost hard to describe because, as you said, I do a lot of different processes and formats. And I blame the pandemic. It was not my favorite time, but all of this came from it. So it's
That's
Awesome.
good. Hey, the good from the bad, right? We always kind of joke because we met through the pandemic, got married
Yep.
through the pandemic.
Yep.
So we're like,
oh,
good stuff happens.
Yeah.
You gotta, that's life. That's
Significant life changes. So
significant life changes.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, West Texas is, you either fall in love with this immediately and like get addicted to it, or you're just like, no thanks. Like a lot of people don't understand it out here, and that's fine. I mean, it's not an easy place to live. The towns are small and it's remote, and we've got like a little dinky hospital, and I just went to the movies, and it's the only theater in a 3-hour radius. So
Oh,
and we
goodness.
just don't have a lot of stuff, and yet we kind of have everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it works for you. And
Yeah.
certainly, like I said, the work that you do out there.
Yeah, you found your
Amazing.
place.
Yeah, you found your place.
I found
That's
my-
for sure. You can definitely tell that. So when you first started out, you were saying you graduated photojournalism. So were you looking to be like a reporter, or what was your original aim there?
Let's see. Let me think back to my 20-year-old brain. Probably not thinking real hard about anything. I originally was a fine art major, and I just got into photography because I wanted to shoot film and learn how to do darkroom, and I like to write. So I thought, well, this will be fun. And I didn't, but when I was in school, I was always interested in art photography, and yet I was in photojournalism, which wasn't, they weren't doing alternative processes or anything like that. I mean, I graduated and I worked for the local, like, weekly kind of liberal leaning magazine paper, the Austin Chronicle, just as a freelancer, but I never did anything like as a professional career in journalism.
Yeah.
But the skills I learned have definitely come in handy.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. You have a series that looks like you were doing that kind of started when you were talking about, when the pandemic started, and you had a series that kind of came up, and I was looking at a lot of that work, and it has this really great storytelling / like sense of humor about it that was just hilarious. I saw the one image, and you were basically just face down, and there was like a windmill that was like broken in the background, and I was just like, it was just hilarious. And I was looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, that's such a sense of humor there. It's like really, you're looking at it with like what happened there? Like, I like that when you look at a photo and you're like, you have to look at it for a while to kind of figure it out. And I really love that whole kind of series. Could you talk about a little bit about that?
Oh,
'Cause you have
thanks.
quite a few
Yeah,
photos that you took with that.
the panoramic work, the self-portraits that I do with the Noblex. Yeah, I mean, that was one thing that I was taught in photojournalism, is to have imagery that tells a story. And I think that that's just always something if you look at an image and it's evocative and you're like, well, what is going on there? Or like, where is this? Or how did this happen? Or who is that? Or just, if it has you asking questions, I really like that. So the self-portraits, actually, the self-portrait started with my pinhole camera in 2020, and that was almost practice for the Noblex because it gave me practice of placing myself in landscapes. Of course, with the with the pinhole, it's more like run and stand still for like a minute and a half. So it's like
Yeah.
1001, 1002, and there's like bugs landing on me. It's like scorching. So. And then the Noblex, the Noblex is a 120 swing lens panoramic camera. And I obviously live in a place that is very photogenic, and there's a million people that come out and shoot landscapes. And I was like, I don't want to do the normal landscape that's just going to kind of look like everybody else's landscape.
Yeah.
And I feel so connected to the land that I wanted to place myself in it to give context to what you're seeing, like how big this region is, like how big these landscapes are. So when you see my figure, it gives that perspective, but it also gives the connection of it's not a static landscape. It's like there is something going on. And like you said, the one of me laying down, I don't even remember what I was thinking when I did that. I mean, a lot of times I do plan them out because I'm in these areas a lot. So I remember it and I think, okay, the light was that way in the morning, or I like the way that looks, and I'll figure out a way to like integrate myself into the landscape. But then a lot of times I just kind of show up and I just do whatever feels like I should be doing, which must have been laying in the ground face down.
The face down's hilarious. There's another one. There's like a broken down like car, and I think you're like face down, like it's a rusted out vehicle, like from the 60s.
I was on my
It's like,
way.
you're just like totally flattened
I was
down.
totally
Like, yeah,
flat. That's
Yeah.
that's an error. And that's the other thing. It's like, again, with the landscapes, it's like they're shot all the time. And that old car is on a road that anybody going that road, if you're a photographer, you're going to stop and take a picture of that. And so I didn't want to have the same picture as everybody else. And so, yeah, that was, I was on my way to something too. And I had this dress on. I was like all dusty. But yeah.
What are you out there doing? Oh,
Yeah.
nothing.
No,
Are you always by yourself, like doing those? Like,
Oh,
and
I'm
do you
always
set the
by myself.
timer and
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm always by myself. I don't know if I've ever done one when somebody's been able to see me, which helps me to not be distracted by anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't get in your head about it. You're like, no, I'm just going to do it. Like, no one's here to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
no
mean, no one's
see it.
here.
Yeah.
So sorry, there's like a fly that got in. I hope the cord's like buzzing past the microphone.
No worries.
We'll include him if we can hear him. I don't think I heard him.
Okay, good.
That was good.
So if
So
you see
you-
this,
Okay. We know exactly what it is.
Buzz the fly.
Yeah. So you use the Noble X. So is that a 5x12 format?
it's a
Oh my God.
6x12.
It's a
So-
612. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not getting many shots out of your.
No, I get six frames, and that's usually how I base what I'm doing, because I rigged up my own self timer for it, that's a whole separate nightmare. It's because the Noble X just does not work with like any sort of regular self timer, because no one who usually shoots with a Noble X needs a self timer. It's really made for like landscapes. So, I rigged up my 100-year-old Kodak mnemonic self timer thing. I mean, I've got like the whole rig, but it doesn't consistently go off. So I can actually run into a scene like 15 times and maybe get 3 shots, or, like it doesn't go off, or it goes off as I'm running. Not in like a good, interesting way, but like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I usually give myself a roll of film. I'm like, if I'm going to do this for 6 shots, and I usually get it. If it's something that I feel like I really want to make sure I get, I'll load another roll. But you get what you get.
Yeah, take the chances. So you were saying about, using that with the timer and everything. I saw a post that you had with the Kodak autograph.
Oh my God. Yes.
Which I own one of those, and it's so funny because you apparently have the same issues that I'm having with them, and I wasn't smart enough to like think of the solutions that you came up for it. And I was like, oh my God, because the time you can't see the numbers through the window. You have the window like closed up when you put the 120 film through it. And I was like, you took the window, the little lift up window, and you put the red in, and I'm like, why didn't I think of that? And then you put a loop on the viewfinder, and I was like, why didn't I think of that? I'm like, I could be doing this with all these old cameras that I've been using for all these years, because you never see through those viewfinders.
You can never see through them.
No, they're awful. And I'm like, oh my God, a loop. You just tape a loop to it.
I have to say, I'm a pretty good problem solver, but I can get a little overly rig up. Like sometimes I rig stuff up and I'm like, it really didn't need to be that complicated. But yeah, the autographic, I love that camera. I'm having some issues with scratching film, and like, I don't mind some of the weird things that happen because it makes it look like an old photo, but I don't like the scratch right across.
Yeah, the rollers.
Yeah, I think I'm going to
doing it.
Sand them down or something.
Yeah, they're fun cameras. Most of the time with those, I usually just throw paper in the back and do them as pinhole type style, like one and done,
Yeah.
Let it go. But I was like, because I've been like doing the counting.
Uh-uh.
You got to like work out how many
Yeah.
turns like to make it happen. And
No,
I
I
do that
tried
with
that.
a few different cameras. I do that when I run like 35 through an old 120
Yeah.
or something. You got to count the turns like to do it. But then I'm like, wait, was that 3? Was it a whole turn?
Exactly.
Was it half a turn? And then you end up getting it and you have all these like weird overlapping things.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I can use that camera now because now I'm just like, well, I can use the window. Why am I not
Oh.
using the window? So I was glad to see that.
Well, good.
Yeah, I actually shot with Fuji 617 for a little while, and that was a different experience. So, yeah, shooting 4 shots, getting 4 shots to a roll,
Yeah.
is definitely different. Yeah, and then making sure that you don't cock it before you advance it, because if you do, then you accidentally shoot it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I like that you're really experimental. So you really seem to use a lot of different processes and you overlap all
Yeah.
of those processes as well, which is kind of amazing. You're saying you do a lot of Holga work and then your Polaroid series is really great with the lifts. And how
thanks.
you kind of, the coloring that you do, a lot of people, I don't think, do a lot of that. And then you mix them into the silver gelatin stuff too, which
Yeah.
you really just don't see a lot of either. And you do it really skillfully,
Oh,
which is
thank
really,
you.
really fun. Do you have a favorite process or you just love all of them? So that's why they all kind of end up getting together.
I think I would have to say it always comes back to pretty traditional film, darkroom printing. I like to print on fiber paper. Like, even if I deviate from that for a while and I'm like, I love cyanotype and this is what I'm going to do now. And then I'm like, I really want everything to be like really sharp and actually like blacks and whites. So yeah, my favorite process kind of changes all the time, but really it goes back to traditional darkroom film. But yeah, the experimental stuff, I don't know. I feel like this last year and a half has been kind of I'm not sure what happened. A lot of times I'll pick up, like, I had no idea that Polaroid lifts were like a thing. I think I saw a reel and I was like, what's that? And so, of course, like, it's funny that you called me a dabbler because, like, I'm more of a, like, super focused and I'm going to learn everything about this. Like, it starts as a dabble. And if it's something that doesn't, like, I tried film souping and I was like,
Yeah.
this will be fun. I'm like, not interested. So like that, I kind of dabbled in, but like cyanotype, I am in. I got my vacuum frame. I got my UV box. I'm like learning about, experimenting a lot with that. But yeah, the overlap is super fun to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it shows it. You can tell because a lot of your work is overlapped and it has that, like, the elements of all of the things. The Japanese marbling is really fun to see that integrated. That's one I've never seen integrated into film photography and printing.
Was, again, I feel very self-challenged. Like, if I see a process that I'm interested in, like, again, I think I just stumbled on some reel that somebody was showing some Inagashi and I was like, that's really cool. And so I thought, I don't really need like some miscellaneous craft project in my life. So like, how can I use this that would be more meaningful in the work that I already do? And so I tried a bunch of different ways and learned how to do it better. And I love doing it. I haven't had time to kind of pick that project up again, but I will. The overlapping thing, that has gotten, I'm doing it right now because I'm preparing for an exhibit that I install in September in San Antonio. And I had to come up with a theme. I hate having to like decide on one thing. It's like, that's what I'm going to have to do. And I was like, well, what if I just do everything I want to do? So I want to do Polaroid emulsion lifts. I want to do cyanotype, and I want to do emulsion lifts on silver gelatin. So the theme is about all the overlapping emulsions, like how the emulsions can all work to represent the same point of view.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. So that's in, when did you say, September?
September, it's for kind of a photo festival called Photo Septiembre. And it's, I think I should know more about this. I hope they don't listen to this. I think it's mainly San Antonio, but it's also like the Texas Hill Country. So it's a pretty broad area, but different galleries have shows. Different people may open their studios. Like you can become part of this, and it's all on a website. But I was asked by St. Mary's University to put up an exhibit in their student library. And I was like, all right, I'll do that. That sounds fine. So it gave me, I like to have deadlines. It helps me hone in what I'm doing instead of like just being so all over the place. So yeah. I'm excited about it.
Oh, that's really exciting. Yeah, having a deadline is always helpful. Like whenever you don't have anything that you actively need to be shooting for, it gets like that. And then you get like something where like, oh, I had a project and I had to have a time to get it done. And I'm like, oh, I have something I'm working for. And I was actively working on it to get it out and get it ready.
Yes.
But then that went away and now I'm like barely.
Stacy shot a pinhole project on a Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
So that was her project.
Yeah, we were doing the potato head joke. You know, your photo looks like a potato. But yeah, so I took that a step further and just made a Mr. Potato Head into a pinhole, which was ridiculous because I took pictures of friends who were other photographers and different like very crazy kind of scenarios. But it's very strange when you're getting a pinhole photo of yourself taken with a Mr. Potato Head because you're having like literally a stare off with this Mr. Potato Head that's just like staring at you with his big plastic eyes.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
That is really funny.
Yeah. So, but I had a timeline on that. So I'm like, gotta get going. And I remember that one being too, like the show went up in, I think it was September. And then, so it was like, I had to shoot all through the summer. I'm like, well, I hope you guys are
sorry guys.
Sorry. I'm like, can you just be still for 2 minutes?
She was done like 6 months in advance.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta get ahead of the heat.
Yeah.
So you were saying you have a darkroom at home. Is that sort of a new thing, or did you have that set up as soon as you moved there, where you're like, I'm doing this, I'm putting a darkroom here?
You know, in Austin, I belonged to a darkroom co-op for as long as I lived there, basically. Like I even joined it when I was still in college because it was open 24 hours. And
nice.
So you were always alone. So it was like a co-op, but like it was a 1-room darkroom. So you signed up for slots of time and stuff like that. So when I moved out here, as soon as I knew I was going to move, I started collecting equipment. So I had everything kind of ready to set up my darkroom. And the house I found in Alpine, I think it was built in like 1983 or something. And I don't know who designed it, but the bathroom off the master bedroom is enormous and weird. And like, I live alone. I don't need 2 bathrooms. So I'm like, this is just my darkroom. I mean, it's huge. And it's got like a big long counter and I just have like the 80s sink with the little thing that you know, the faucet that only has that one thing, the one turn thing.
Yeah.
But I rigged up my archival washer to the shower head and blocked off the windows, and it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I set that up I moved here 2018. I set it up in 2019.
Okay. So you got it up there pretty fast.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So are you working pretty consistently every day, would you say? Like what kind of schedule you think you're on as far as shooting and creating?
I'm on right now preparing for this show. I'm on a pretty crazy schedule, but because I'm doing different processes, if I feel a little bit of burnout, I'm like, I can just switch. You know, it's like, okay, now I got to do some Polaroid lifts. Now I got to do cyanotype. Like I'm trying to crank out some cyanotype in the next week so I can switch back to printing the silver gelatin to do the Polaroid lifts on top of. But yeah, I mean, I work on it every day. Some photographic thing every day.
Yeah, nice. Do you have any other hobbies that are not photography that you're really passionate about?
Yeah, I mean,
You have time for anything else?
I do.
Some
I
people do.
really like doing relief printing, carving blocks, and I like.
Oh, okay.
I love doing stencil art, and so a lot of this is work that brings income while I'm doing the stuff that I'm not even selling yet. so. So I can do like stencils of desert plants and, stuff that tourists are going to buy. So I sell it in a shop. I live really close to Marfa, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which has
So-
it's
cool.
a weird little art world.
Marfa, a weird little town. But they have, it's huge tourism, and it's a friend of mine has a shop there, and he generously lets me put pretty much anything I want in there.
Nice.
So I have photography in there. I have stencil art and relief printing and cards and, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's that. I don't have as much time to work on that as I would like. I haven't, my skill level with that is definitely not on par with my skill level with photography, but I shouldn't say this. It's good enough.
Hey, sometimes
You fooled us.
it is good enough. And then your opinion of it is probably very different than someone that has, they're looking at from the outside.
Oh, for sure. No,
you're always
people-
way more critical of yourself than
Yeah, it's
anyone else would ever be.
well, I think sometimes when something is sort of easy for you to do or easy for me to, sometimes I do things and I'm like, is that good? Because that was really kind of too easy. And it's like, well, I mean, not everybody can do everything. So it's like, everything shouldn't be a struggle. But yeah.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. What is the future stuff? What do you want to do that you haven't done yet? Do you have anything on like kind of the, you put it on the back burner. You're like, someday.
I do have, there's some processes I want to learn bad, but like gum printing, like tricolor gum printing, some of the work that I see is so spectacular, and it looks like I can hand color photos and I like the way that looks, but like there's something about that process of layering the different colors, and it's like, but I don't shoot color. And so I'm trying to like motivate myself to shoot some color so that I can learn this process and have it and have work ready to do. But I feel like a lot of times what I'm working on now, it's not just that I'm working on it to produce work. It's skill building. So like all the stuff I'm doing with Cyanotype, I want to do some, tricolor cyanotype where you don't need a color photo, do you? I can't remember now.
Not necessarily.
I don't think I've seen cyanotypes
you
with
could
tricolor. I've seen tricolor with black and white, but not with cyanotype. How does that work? I actually do a lot of cyanotype work,
I should
I'm actually curious
remember
about that.
because I've watched YouTube videos on it, and a friend of mine does it. God, I can't even remember now. But it's like just learning different skills that eventually will come together when I'm ready to use it for something else. So like even registration, like even in doing relief printing, like I've done different colors where they're different carvings where I've had to register them. So it's like learning how to register something will help me hopefully when I start doing this.
Yeah, part of that is sizing the paper. You have to make sure that your paper sized
so it doesn't
properly.
shrink.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have to like especially like soak it and then use like a I don't remember what I've used in the past, but you use something to help size the paper to make sure that it doesn't change in size when you go to do different processes and apply different colors to the paper.
Yeah. So sometimes if I look into a process that looks interesting, and if it starts to like hurt my brain, I'm like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And so I'll just learn other things. And eventually it just kind of comes to, I put off learning cyanotype for decades because I'm like, I'm not interested. That blue stuff, not interested at all. I don't want to put plants on blue paper. I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing some work that was so inspiring. Like I just didn't understand the different levels that you can use cyanotype for. And
Oh yeah.
then I was like, oh, I get it now. And of course now I love the blue. You know, like I didn't like it before, but now I'm like, for the right thing, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, cyanotype can be very, very specific. I've been doing cyanotype work that's kind of where I started with film, was actually with cyanotype.
Yeah.
'Cause it seemed really accessible. And then when I was a kid, I saw a picture in a magazine. It was like this like Better Homes and Gardens magazine or book or whatever. And it was like the Christmas edition. And they had all these pillows on a couch and they were like they're all blue and they were the cyanotype. And I remember looking at it as a kid going, I don't know what that is, but I like it. And it just didn't make sense. Like as a kid, I was like reading the instructions. I'm like, none of it made sense. I'm like, what is this? And then revisiting it later on as an adult and then sort of diving into it a little deep. I'm like, oh, this is a lot more than just, pictures of, silhouettes of flowers and stuff.
Right.
It's like a lot of people just traditionally think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So whenever you start doing actual photos as a part of it, it's like a whole different world that you have to get into, especially with getting your photos adjusted. Because people are like, oh, you just put the negative right down. No.
I think it switches from a very creative process to a very technical process.
It becomes very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh my
turns
God.
From craft into technical very, very quickly with cyanotype.
Yes. Yeah. It's, I got the Christina Z. Anderson cyanotype book. And because, that's like the Bible of cyanotype. And I started looking at it and I was like, oh my God, do I need like a PhD to do cyanotype? Like kids at the camp. Why can I not figure this out? Because I was, when I learn something, like I really want to learn it. And so it's like, sometimes it's too much information when you just need to do it. So like, I just started doing it. And the more I was doing it, the more the technical stuff started to make more sense. And I started being less intimidated by it, but also just learning to make digital negatives where I'm used to looking at film negatives through an enlarger. And I'm used to burning and dodging and using filters and like fixing it as you're printing and not having like a ready-made negative that should print right the first time. I was like, oh God, I've got to. So I had to get my cyanotype eyes, my cyanotype negative eyes, which I'm starting to understand a lot more with curves, Photoshop and using curves.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How the emulsion reacts so much differently than silver.
Yeah, you have to. It's kind of like with platinum and palladium printing. You have to get your
Similar
tones dialed in. Otherwise, you end up just losing it all once it hits a certain exposure, because you're exposing it either to the sun or you're exposing it to a UV unit, and then you're limited there. So it's whatever you do there, you have to do a test and then also repeat it. So it gets super technical once you start diving into the, not doing the plants and silhouette type feel.
Yeah.
Of cyanotypes.
And as much as you think you have cyanotype dialed in, it's you really can't control it. It's so like it does its own thing. The water, the paper, the UV that's hitting it, the strength. Like there's so many pieces of it. I think that's kind of why I like it though, because I like all those processes where I'm like, well, this might not work. Like I use, Dan can speak to this.
Yeah.
The amount of times I shoot through cameras where the whole roll's just like nothing. Like, and I screw it up. I'm like, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
I like that as much as I complain when I get like a completely, messed up roll or something. But I like that unpredictability, and cyanotype's kind of like that. You try to wrangle it in. But
it is what it is.
Yeah, there's too many elements that would have to be exactly the same. And I'm like, I can't control all this. Even just coding it, it's like, I know people like measure it. I'm like, I am not going to measure. So I'm just not that person. I'm more of an intuitive printer. So yeah. And just even the toning is super fun. Just like knowing how much to bleach it and when to pull it out and when I can spot bleach something. And I love it. It's like, it's kind of my gateway to color because it's like, I really love it. I'm like, maybe this will make me shoot some color or be able to see better in color.
You're getting a color. You're
Yeah,
moving
a
up
color.
one color at a time. Black and white. I'm blue. I got blue handled. I can move into another one. Cenotype's nice too because you can really experiment and not be spending a ton of money on it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the difference between when you're shooting on like fiber and nice film and like the developer and that can add up really quickly. But
Yeah.
Cenotype, it doesn't take a whole lot of money. It's like, you know, in watercolor paper and it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
That's not too bad. I can do that.
Plus, you can tone it so you can get that blue to kind of calm down a
Calm
little
down
bit.
if you don't want the blue. Yeah. Have you ever done any cyanolumen work, which is sort of like the mix?
No. And I actually even looked into lumens because I had some like old paper that I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I should use this for something. But a friend of mine is moving and she gave me a bunch of her darkroom equipment. Like I need more. And so I gave her a bunch of my old paper because she does lumens. And I was like, why don't I just not
awesome.
hoard this? Like I hoard everything and pass it on. Because when it's time for me to be interested in lumens, you know, I'll probably have some old paper laying around.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and lumens are fun with like the old paper. They get some, speaking of weird color shifts and things you can't control.
Yeah.
I know they're
right in
beautiful.
there.
Yeah,
That's the one.
it's a beautiful process. I watch from afar for now.
Yeah, that's definitely one
Yeah.
where if you want precise and expectable results, that's the wrong process.
Yeah.
That's like so far away from that.
Yes.
Which is funny. So I was going to ask about your Polaroids. You had some really large format. It looked like Polaroids there for some of your work. What kind of cameras are you working with there with the Polaroids?
I may be accidentally tricking you because
Oh, okay.
I just
They just
shoot
look
with-
so good.
It's
They
so
look good.
funny.
They
I
look
was telling
good.
my friend, I'm like, I'm not really a Polaroid person. I was looking around. I'm like, how many Polaroid cameras do I have? I have a lot of Polaroid cameras.
Maybe I am a Polaroid person.
I shoot with. I have Polaroid Now. I have like the original Polaroid Now, and then I just got the Polaroid Now Plus Generation 2 that can do all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is almost like photography. Polaroid community is gonna like excommunicate me. But like it has, long exposures and like it has all these functions. And I'm like, yes, there's some control because Polaroid just does whatever the fuck Polaroid wants to do. And that really, I had to like really ease into that because it was, I don't know why I've stuck with it. I think I just felt so challenged. I'm like, I'm going to do this. Yeah, the Polaroid Now. I do have like the old Polaroid One Step, not the like big. I mean, I have those too, the big chunky ones.
Oh, yeah.
Pop up flash. This is it's such a cute one. It's probably like down here on the floor somewhere, but it doesn't handle the new black and white film well. The new black and white film's too thick for it, and so it gets jammed in there. Because it takes SX70, and the SX70 black and white film is thick. So yeah,
That's a bummer.
it's
So are you having to source everything through online, or do you guys have local anything there? Where
no, we have nothing. I
Okay.
buy everything online, and that's the other thing. It's like I learned that I absolutely cannot buy Polaroid film in the summer because those trucks are not air conditioned. So like last summer, I got a bunch of film and I was like, it's all heat damaged. And and I was like, well, Polaroid's expensive. So I shot it. Everything's like pink and purple. And that's when I started hand coloring. I was like, I've got to rescue this. So I just do a lift, hand color it, and it looks cool. So
Oh yeah, yeah. Your hand coloring looks amazing.
It's super
like,
fun.
it's very subtle, but like just enough.
Used correctly. That's
Yep.
I guess
Yeah,
a good way to
it's,
say it. Yeah, the subtlety of it. Yeah.
The hand coloring is real. I love doing photo oils on fiber paper. Like that's a whole different look. And I've been hand coloring some of my cyanotypes, which is super fun because it's watercolor paper, so I can use watercolors. And I almost do more of a wash, so it's not specific like the oil painting. This fly is driving me up the fucking wall. Oh my God.
He loves you. I haven't seen him.
Cut that out.
Yeah, you can,
Oh
you
my
can
God.
get him.
He just wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So yeah,
But
so
yeah.
I'm trying to, so are you talking about my cyanotypes of the Polaroids? Is that what you were thinking was a large format?
I saw something in it. You had your hand in it, and it looked like a Polaroid lift, and the Polaroid lift itself looked to be quite large. Right there.
Is it a black and white one?
Yes.
So
You have a negative and a
There's a
positive.
negative and a positive, and it looks like
Probably a print.
It's probably a print.
Oh,
but
you're
it's-
talking about
The pyramid.
Okay,
We call it
I
the
did
pyramid.
a Polaroid lift, a black and white Polaroid lift on glass. Use that as a glass negative in my enlargement.
Oh. Okay.
And I haven't revisited that because it is incredibly hard to print. So what I'm doing is I'm printing a negative and I'm using the paper negative to create the positive. So I'm printing it on 11 by 14 paper.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Polaroid lift itself. It's not like a regular negative. So it's like crazy, using different filters and burning and dodging like crazy to even get it remotely right. And then to have the negative print well as a paper negative has to look different than if I'm printing for the negative to be a print. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. I've never seen that done before. I think that's why it caught my eye.
Oh,
'cause I
yeah.
was like,
It's never been.
wait,
well,
is she getting like a jumbo size like
no, it is.
Polaroid? I'm like, does that exist? I'm like, maybe I'm missing something.
It could pass as an 8 by 10 negative.
It's a pretty bit, yeah. And I had to do it. My enlarger can only print 4 by 5. Like that's the largest I can print. So like I had to make it in that space. No, it's not easy. I don't know why. I think I just wanted to push the Polaroid lift thing because it's sort of like cyanotype. It's like children can do a Polaroid emulsion lift. Like the process itself is not necessarily that hard, but how can I push this? How can I do something with it that's unique? And it's fun for me. Like I like the challenge of it. That was maybe a little bit challenging, but yeah, I'll eventually. I even have more to do. I just haven't been able to print them.
Yeah. Fun. Yeah. It's nice to see whenever you have these, you have a process and you don't stop. You're like, okay, well, I did this. Like, no, push it. Like keep going, see what you can get out of the medium like itself. So it's always fun to be able to see like someone that's being able to what else can I do with this? I can do something else with this. Like just keep pushing it and pushing it. Yeah, that's what makes it fun.
So what enlarger are you using for this? I would have guessed maybe an Omega.
Omega D. Yeah,
Yes.
I love it.
Guessed
I mean,
it.
that's what we had in our Austin darkroom, the co-op darkroom. And like I said, I'm just not like a techie person. I was like, I cannot deviate. I need the same enlarger. So like I found because I'm like, I can't learn anything new because my brain cannot handle this. So I got one that was in pristine condition. So I set it up and I was like, okay, I'm home. I'm home with my Omega.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of my negative carriers, I like to print full frame. So I order from Bit by Bit Photo. He's a guy out of San Antonio, and he does 3D printed negative carriers, and you can just send him specs, and
Oh, wow.
he'll do anything you
Nice.
want. So like, I'm like, oh really? So I've got it for every format I shoot. I've got one, or I just make my own out of cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's
That's
really,
awesome.
Yeah, that's really nice. I
Yeah.
often am like that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to
Wait.
crop this like this.
We have two Bestlers in our lab, and of course I'm spacing on the models,
Well, I
but
wouldn't know.
they go all the way up to 4x5 now. Awesome enlargers, so we can print all the way from 35 to 4x5. So I was curious. I was like, if you're shooting with a Noblex
Yeah.
and you're printing, it's got to be all the way up to 4x5.
Oh,
So
it's pushing it. It's really pushing it.
Oh, I
I mean,
bet.
I have to like, because I made my own negative carrier and I have to get it in there. And it's like, I'm looking to see, like, I mean, when I first started printing it, I think I was using the wrong lens. And I was like, these negatives are so hard to print. I'm having to like earn so much over here. And it's like, 'cause I'm using the wrong lens. Yeah, because it's right to the edge.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, you're basically just pushing it. With the 617, I was experimenting and I wanted to print with we briefly had a 10 by 10 enlarger,
Wow.
which came from a company, Aerial Mapping Co., which used to be up the street from us, and they closed their doors in like 2010 because obviously Google took over, and then we ended up getting it because they were selling the building in 2020, and of course COVID came along. So I'm like, oh well, there's nobody using the lab, so we'll pull this enlarger in, and we had it in our lab for a while, and then I borrowed a 617 from a friend, and I was like, I got to print with it, and then we got rid of it before I printed anything, which is for the better. It was a massive enlarger.
Yeah.
It was ridiculously big.
Oh, you need like your own room for those. Like
They're massive.
yeah.
I mean, you can print all the way up to a 48-inch diameter. I think the lens is a 300 millimeter lens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
just
ridiculous.
just massive.
But hopefully we'll have a second life because now it's in
Yeah.
in Joshua Tree, sitting in a storage container that's being turned into a dark room
Oh,
Yeah.
with a
nice.
friend that lives out there. So he's hopefully getting it going. I think we saw a picture not that long ago, and it looked like
Yeah,
he was
he-
getting ever
he
so
had
closer.
he had drywall up. He had
Yeah.
a sink in. He had it all organized in there. When we saw it, it was kind of just like shoved in there.
Whole bunch of
um,
photography stuff just in his container,
yeah.
but now it's starting to actually look like
Yeah.
he's working on it, which
So
is awesome.
Nice.
he's making some progress. So once he gets that all set up and going, maybe I can
We'll go
take
out-
some of these
Yeah.
617 negatives I have and go out there and print them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of those things. I mean, even having a darkroom in your home can be tricky for a lot of people,
Oh,
especially depending on, what kind of size your house is and how many people you have in your house.
Yeah.
But to have something of that size is like a whole
Oh.
other
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing altogether.
That's
But-
a whole different thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you're able to print without any major difficulties.
Yeah.
Minor difficulties are okay, I guess.
Yeah. All the accoutrement that take up I'm assuming you have a lot of stuff in your house because now all the stuff takes its own little stuff, like
I
space.
have a lot of stuff in my house, and even in my dark room, like every time I learn something new, I'm like, oh my god, now I have like a zillion trays for all the cyanotype and for the toning, and it's like I've got a print rack, and I built my UV box on top of my print rack, which the drying rack, which is on wheels. So like I'm in my dark room and I just kind of wheel things around. And like I bought this enormous vacuum frame. Like as soon as I wanted to start doing larger cyanotypes, I was having such a hard time trying to get the negative pressed on the emulsion all the way across. And
Yeah.
I had a couple guys reach out to me on Instagram. They were so nice. They're like, I see that you're trying to do large photos and you really should look into this vacuum frame. It's a guy out of Florida, and I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now, but he builds these really nice vacuum frames that have like a heavy clear plastic on top, and it plugs into like kind of a loud it's like a motor, and you turn it on and it just sucks everything down super flat. So I can do huge prints. Like I just did
awesome.
today, I just exposed two 16 by 20s side by side in my UV box. So
Nice. Yeah, that's a real
That
real
comes in
trick.
handy.
It does. Yeah. A lot of the time I'll go and I look ridiculous when I do some of my large, because most of my cyanotype work tends to be a little big, and I'll be out there and I'll have like a, a board underneath, and then I'll have I'll do plexiglass a lot of the time on there, and I'll be like carefully I'll be like, get the door. And I'm going out in the sun with it. I'm like, please don't move. And then, I've even done like human-sized ones where I've gotten this giant roll of paper. So I'm doing 12 foot by 5 foot across,
Yeah.
ridiculous size cyanotypes that I've done. But I'm like, oh God, this is not ideal.
Yeah.
But yeah, vacuum box
Sounds
sounds
like-
super helpful for a lot of
It's-
that stuff.
Oh, definitely.
really helpful. And the people recommending it are doing really spectacular alt process work. So I trusted them, I looked, as soon as they mentioned it, I was like, are you like a photo bro and you're just gonna tell me how to do something? And I looked at their work and I was like, okay, these guys really know what they're doing, and they're doing high level work. So they're trusting this equipment, and because it was an investment for sure.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, but my UV box looks sort of like a giant pizza oven. I slide because my UV lights are right on it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need a lot of. I always depend on the sun. I'm timing it out. I'm looking at the UV index, and I'm like, okay,
Oh,
what
no,
time
see.
is it? Where's the sun?
Yeah.
that's like
Are the stars aligned?
Yeah,
really is
that's
the stars
too much
line.
for me to worry about. I'm like, I'm just gonna do this.
It's so much more predictable when you have the exact same UV every time. And you put it in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And also
that's
we
a
were
joy.
talking about, I'm a night person too. So after I get off this, I'm probably going to go do some toning. So I like having, I can do things in the dark.
Yeah. We live a lot of our lives in the dark. We have our
Yeah.
friend, what Dave say, he said, we spend all this time in the dark, but we depend upon that light,
Yeah.
for
Right.
all the work.
Right.
We need the light, but we're in the dark all the time.
Like little hermits.
We are little dark hermits. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have a section. Did we get questions? So
We did get questions.
before our podcast, we always put out to our listeners if they have questions at all for the person that we're talking to. And I know we put out one for you, and I believe we did get a question. I think we put it out a little last minute this time, so we probably could have gotten more questions, but I believe we did get one. So
Yeah.
we'll I don't know if you already know the question, if Dan pre-screened it on you or not, but
No, I didn't.
No.
But let me switch over here.
gotta look at the phone.
Yeah, there was.
Oh, okay. I
one.
got my glasses on.
Let me. We'll cut out this in between banter. I've got one here. Sorry, I should have.
Not prepared.
Not prepared.
Terrible.
We'll adjust this here. Let me see my archive. There's actually two. One wasn't a question. One was just love your work.
Oh, that's nice.
So, friend of ours follows you.
Is that all photo?
No, our friend Ryan Hale.
Oh, Ryan Hale. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman named Off Photo, and I see his posts on your. I saw the fly finally.
Oh, that was another bug. So I'm a total cat lady. I moved out to the country with my one cat, like a normal person, and cat had kittens in my backyard. So all of a sudden I was taking care of 4 cats, and it's just snowballed into, I'm like a feral cat community. Wait, what's it called? I am a feral cat colony keeper, official with the city. So I have 4 cats inside. So I built a huge catio. So it's basically
Nice.
Nice.
open, and so the bugs get in. I just live with bugs. That's
Yeah, that's how it is.
Okay.
That's the life.
oh,
All right.
were
So
our
our questions are, we actually did get another one in before.
We did.
So One is this comes from David Venezia for Venezia Photography on Instagram. What is an alt process that you recommend that doesn't require ventilation?
Well, first of all, you know me and my ventilation. I'm like, you don't need
Yeah. Previously discussed.
No,
actually, roll the dice.
I mean, really, cyanotype is, I don't know if Polaroid emulsion lifts count as alternative alt process.
Yeah, I would count those, and they
I
don't.
suppose so.
I don't think you need any kind of ventilation with that.
Oh yeah, no, you don't need. So
Yeah,
either
yeah.
Polaroid emulsion lifts, if you got access to Polaroid, there's so much information online on how to do those. So that's a fun one. But in cyanotype, like really, I think that getting into it, I mean, I jumped right in with digital negatives, but you can just coat something and go outside, put something cool on it, let it expose, just to kind of familiarize yourself with what the process is. And you're just using water and vinegar, and like you don't have to have scary chemicals. So yeah, both of those.
Cyanotype is definitely one of the safest processes. That's why a lot of time you'll see it used with kids
Yeah.
and things, because it's one of the safest ones. I think people get scared a little bit of cyanotype because they see the potassium ferrocyanide and they're like, cyanide. But you would have to put a lot of heat and a lot of acid to that to make cyanide.
Right.
You could technically make cyanide, but you would have to be going out of your way to make cyanide to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So cyanotype across the board is like literally, I think, out of all the processes, the one that's the least toxic of any of them, either by skin or even if you drank it. Like, I think technically, like it wouldn't hurt you too much. Yeah, so that's probably
definitely. And it's super fun. Like even, I was super opposed to the blue. I'm like, blue, oh, I don't like it. But then when you do it yourself in person and you see that beautiful blue come up, it changes your mind. Like it changed my mind real fast. So
yeah, Prussian blue has a very
very striking.
It's a very unique color. It's
so
why it has
beautiful.
its own name.
Yeah,
like denim,
it's really
but nicer.
Denim, but nicer.
Denim, but less Canadian.
That's Canadian.
We've got another question that came in, and we didn't quite get into this, but we can. Any advice for new artists submitting for calls of work for their work?
Oh, actually, I do have some advice about that, just because I used to do this a lot, like in the 80s and 90s. Like we just did it. And then I just stopped for like a really long time. But this last year, I decided I want to kind of get back into this. And I think it's really important to really look at what you're submitting to, like look and see who is the juror, like what is their style? What are they interested in? I have submitted to things that, like, in retrospect, I'm like, why did I submit to that? That I had no chance of getting in, because once I saw what was chosen, I was like, oh, of course. Like, I just wasn't appropriate for what I was applying to. So I think finding things that you feel like your work really fits into, and it's subjective. So like, you can never take it personally, like, who cares? My friend's always like, you can't win at art. And it's like, well, no, you can't win at art. But I think it's fun to apply to things because it's exposure, and it's like you get exposed to other people's work, whoever's in the show with you. So yeah, I think it's just really paying attention and not taking things personally, and looking for free entries. That's like an easy way to kind of get used to it. The Curated Fridge, highly recommended the Curated Fridge. It is, they do open calls. It is free to enter. You have to send in actual physical prints. But I mean physical prints as in you can go to the photo, you can go to, who does photos now? Kinko's, like Is Kinko's around anymore? You can edit all
I
this.
think Kinko's became FedEx. I think
Oh, did they?
FedEx bought
you know
them
what?
out, yeah.
I think you're right.
I mean,
think that's FedEx now.
so you submit that, but then you submit online, and yeah, look up the curated fridge. I'm a huge fan of that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And then we don't have a question, but we did get a comment, and it comes from Ryan Hale, our friend with the lab. He says, no questions right now, but I love Liz and the work she does. So
Thank you.
shout out to you, Liz, for everything that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good closing sentiment, I think,
Yeah.
there. Yeah, we
Yeah.
really like the work that you do. We're excited to
Yeah.
see where your work goes. We're loving what we're seeing. So
Yeah.
keep on keeping.
Not sticking with the typical stuff you see on Instagram that everybody's doing, same angle of the car and, same overexposed portrait film to get those vibes, those color vibes, tones.
No, I had to learn some lingo because, like, I'm 56. I'm 56. I'm like, what are the young people? What is this tones and vibes thing? I don't understand. But yeah,
Weird lingo.
I'm 34 and I don't understand it.
I mean,
honestly.
I don't
so.
understand. I got like a Cartwright hat. Cartwright, is that? There's some.
Oh, the Carhartt? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got it at like the tractor supply store because it's cold when I go camping, and I didn't know that was like a brotographer cap.
You're so trendy, you don't even
I'm
know.
like, I didn't even know how trendy I am.
Do you shoot film? Yeah. Sometimes. Sometimes I do emotion lifts.
So yeah, no, thanks for inviting me on. It was nice to
Yeah.
just ramble on about everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, we love your work and excited to see what you do with it down the road. And hopefully we can cross paths down the road. I don't know if we will, but who knows?
That'd be great.
In this crazy world. We can connect and shoot some photos together or something. But yeah, thank you, Liz, so much for joining us on our podcast.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
And we'll catch you again. Hopefully we can touch bases down the road and have you on for another episode.
Yeah.
I'm here all the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.